Welcome to the Mostly Potted at Night. Mostly, I am Salem, joined by my co-host Graveyard.
Hello.
This is episode 27 of our weekly All Things Horror podcast. You will never look at a wicker basket the same way after we dive into one of the freakiest trilogies, Basket Case.
Yeah.
We'll get into it. I think it kind of gets worse as it goes along, but we'll discuss.
Almost definitely.
We'll start off with the first movie, Basket Case 1, which came out in 1982. Yes.
1982, yes.
And Graveyard, take it away, buddy. Give us the recap.
All right. Well, essentially, we kind of start off with a doctor that's kind of in his house, about to leave, and I think I'd say something freaks him out outside his house. He runs back into his house, and that's when he decides, I'm locking the door, and then I'm gonna lock all my windows, which I don't know about you. My windows are always locked, and I don't live by New York City at all. And it's like, how uncommon is it that when your windows are unlocked, first and foremost? I just got to point that out.
Well, me personally, my windows are always locked, and the storm windows are always down, even in the summer. It doesn't matter; they're always as locked as they can be. But again, I also grew up a city boy, so I've been paranoid my whole life. So that's normal for me.
Right. I mean, I'm suburban area, but I'm still, you can call it city life, right? I definitely never left my stuff unlocked, but that's weird tangent, but I just found it weird that they go around checking. He goes around checking his windows.
This is. I mean, to be fair, this is like a farmhouse. This is like
in the forest. Yeah.
Well, I mean, not necessarily, but at least there's enough trees and wood, greenery around him to where you can't see other people.
Right.
So I mean, it may be in the middle of nowhere. He may just have good tree lines to block his neighbors. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. So anyway, he starts going and goes around, checks all his windows, looking out, he sees shadowy figures kind of outside. He starts to call someone, thinking someone's out there. First the phone line gets ripped out of the wall pretty easily, I would say, and then he loses dial tone and just oh no. And then you kind of see a breaker box, and doesn't really implied, but just seems like they just turn off the main breaker to the house, right? Which is weird. You think that they would just rip that off too? Whatever. Sure, it's a lot harder.
Why do all that when you can just hit the switch?
Right. Yeah, I guess that's fair. Switch is easier. And then essentially, then he comes through a window. Something comes through the window or door. I don't remember which one it was.
I think it was upstairs, and he heard it creaking along the floor.
Yeah.
So he knew something was in the house.
Yeah, and then we get a pretty his face, a hand comes out and kind of just tears at his face.
Yeah. Well, another funny thing is he pulls a gun out of the desk, and it is the tiniest gun I've ever seen. It is a revolver, and it looks like a cap gun. I mean, it's so tiny, and he shoots it, and I don't even think it made a loud enough. Yeah, I don't even think it made a loud enough noise to make him flinch.
It looks like he's holding it between both hands, and looks like he's using two fingers to pull the trigger as he's shooting it, which is very odd. It's not a double trigger gun,
right? It's I don't know. This whole gun situation is not thought out. I don't think.
No, it's I've never seen a gun before, and that's what they made.
Right? Yeah.
It pulls the trigger and makes a noise. That's about all I got. What kind of noise? Pew.
Right, yeah.
His face gets slashed, and I'd say decently gory effects right off the bat.
Right.
Good tearing of the flesh effects.
There was interesting where it was very obviously fake teeth were glued to his lip.
Yes,
to make it look like his lip was torn off, but you could clearly see that his lip was still underneath the fake teeth. But I mean, it still looked good. I mean, I'm being judgy because I just see a lot of these movies and a lot of effects, so it's very easy to see bad stuff. But it doesn't look that bad. It's just if you look at it, you can clearly see that this is Amateur hour.
And let's get this straight. This is a very indie, very low budget movie.
Yes, yeah, I think they made the whole movie for $35,000.
Correct.
With his
correct,
and it has stop motion in it, which I don't know how they did that. I mean, granted, it is not good stop motion, but it is there.
No, but yeah, right. And you go, okay, that's pretty good with the budget they had. Pretty good, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say most of the budget is kind of the next scene where they showed New York City, actually at New York City, right?
Right.
Like we meet Duane Bradley, which a guy carrying around a wicker basket in a backpack. It looks like he's just backpacking out across New York City.
Right. Well, quick aside here, just real fast. It's super interesting that this is 1982.
Mm-hmm.
They're in Times Square.
Uh-huh.
Times Square is still the old Times Square with all the porno theaters, and the peep shows, and the the porn shops and sex, all the movie theaters are all like XXX, porn
girls.
Yes, this is Times Square used to be like the den of the red light district in all of New York. Like it was like one of the worst areas to be in.
Yeah,
and they didn't clean it out until I think it was it the 90s? Was it early 90s, late 80s, early 90s? I think is when they like went on a rampage and they like kicked out all those businesses and then just like wiped it out and redid it. I mean, now it's obviously like super clean, like they have.
I'm just trying to remember. I'm just trying to remember if when Jason went there, if it was still the seedy underground. I think it was, and that was 1988. So yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, like I said, I think it was. I think they started in the late 80s, and I think they like finished it up in the early 90s. I mean, I don't live in New York, so I can't give you the definitive timeline, but it's just interesting to see the old Times Square.
Yeah, very, and that's probably why it was so cheap to probably shoot there at that point in time.
Well, yeah, but not only that, but all the actors in this movie, they look like they just like pulled them off the street.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, they're not like your typical like beautiful actress people. No, these are like they look like real, normal New York people.
Yeah. And then like Duane comes in, we see him with his Sigourney Weaver haircut from Alien, which, as we discussed before offline, that's a very androgynous haircut that everyone had.
Well, yeah, it was the unisex universal haircut. Everybody had the early 80s, the late 70s, early 80s. Everybody had that kind of haircut.
Oh, even Jeff Goldblum.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like everybody had that haircut at that time.
Yeah, so, and you can tell that they really want, so he's trying to find a hotel room. He's just, just a montage of him going through Times Square, New York City. And they love the neon sign because they show it for the hotel, Brolin, Broslin, whatever it was, right?
Right. Yeah. And every time they show it, they do the little, like the little like electrical crackle.
Yeah. Every time. A fly hitting the neon light.
Yeah. Every time.
Yes. I'm assuming it's just one shot they did. They just inserted it and used it over and over again. So essentially he meets a guy, the hotel owner, which looks like Mario from the Mario Brothers.
Yeah. With no hat, but yeah.
With no hat, but yes. And, he's just talking about like, it's $20 a night in advance. I have to pay by noon the next day. And there's just a bunch of couple New Yorkers just hanging out in, I would guess you call it the lobby. I mean, there's like 2 seats and the room for like 2 more people in there.
Yeah, it was like a 5x5 lobby. Like it was, I don't even think it was prison cell size.
Yeah, and then he takes out a lot of cash and has a hard time finding a 20 and all that. And that's the old school, almost all green 80s money, right?
Well,
like, is this real? And has like staring at it.
Yeah, well, they didn't have the fancy markers to test back then.
Correct.
So, like, how are you going to test, dude?
And one guy's like, "Oh, he's loaded." Like, I'll leave him alone. And it's probably gonna be like 2 rooms, a floor in this hotel. Like, it had to have been an old apartment building, I would think.
I mean, maybe. I mean, who knows? I mean, they were, well, that's the hard thing to tell about New York, is a lot of times they'll take a hotel and change it into apartments, and they sell little studios that are the size of hotel rooms. So, I mean, who knows? It goes back and forth.
Yeah. So he's carrying a big wicker basket with him. Like, he's struggling to keep it and just has a lock in it. You go, okay, this is weird. Um, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna get us some dinner. Who's he talking to? Right. So he goes back down, leaves his basket there. He's like, you got any food? We're a good place to get food. What are you looking for? Place across the street has burgers and pizza. That sounds great. As he's walking out, he meets a lady of the night, assumingly, with this really greasy old white guy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Johns always have to be greasy and shady looking. That's just how it goes.
Yes. So he comes back and he brings I don't know, 2 pizzas, a bag full of just greasy burgers, and a bag full of hot dogs as well. And he starts just dumping just the meat initially into the basket, and it's making ravenous noises like something's inside eating it. Then he starts throwing whole burgers in there. Then he starts throwing the burgers dumps in all the burgers with the foil still on them. And then he starts taking a bite of a cheeseburger and goes to sleep. Lays down and starts eating, which is dangerous. I would never do that, especially a burger.
Well, I wouldn't eat in my bed, period, because I don't like sleeping in crumbs. But
I mean, I'm sure crumbs were the least of his worries in that bed.
Well, in that hotel, yeah.
Yeah. So I think he pays for 5 nights initially or something like that. But anyway, and he's talking to whatever's in this basket, but you only hear one side of it, right? So it's like he kind of rubs his head like the universal signal of someone telepathically speaking to me,
right?
And he's talking and arguing. And then what? And then he kind of goes out the next day, initially, right?
The next day is the doctor's appointment.
Yeah, so he then takes his basket with him. He's going to go see Dr. Needleman.
Needleman, yes.
Needleman, yes. And to a doctor's office, which is a 2x3 stairwell to a doctor's office. No windows or anything like that. Meanwhile, there's the guy who's eyeing his money before is looking through his lock and trying to see what's going on in there, wants to steal his money. But he gets dissuaded from it, saying, hey, leave him alone. He's just a nice kid. And then he goes to visit Dr. Needleman. He's like, hey, I'm a friend of the family. My name is Duane Smith. My name is Duane Smith. Because Duane, very common name, I guess, in 1980s New York.
Well, it's New York. They've heard every name there.
Upstate. It's a surprise, And then they, out of nowhere, essentially just start hitting off with the secretary, who thought he was initially there to fix the typewriter because he looks like someone there to fix the typewriter, and his tools are in the basket. And they immediately hit off. It's like, hey, you seem cool and nice and handsome. Why don't you go visit New York City with me and go see all these things? Because yeah, I'd like that. And so they set a date for, she's off on Wednesday. Today was Tuesday then for this.
Right. Well, yeah, she wants him to go with her now. But he's like, no, I have something to do tonight.
Yes. So he goes visits doctor, who's just shoving as much food into his face as humanly possible, I would say. Thick glasses. And he puts the basket down. He's like, my side hurts or something inside doesn't feel right. And I'd say Dr. Newman seems kind of pervy. He's like, oh yeah, take off your clothes and go into that room.
I didn't get that vibe. Maybe that's like your fantasy or something. You got a doctor fantasy?
That's what I said. That's just what it seemed like to me. It just seemed like a grease slime ball as well. I just took it as I'm gonna see this young kid take off.
Well, I think they were just trying to make him seem like a callous, mean guy.
Okay.
I don't think they were trying to make it doing like a pervy thing. They're trying to show that he's like a not nice guy.
Okay. And so he takes off his shirt, and you see like most of his right side is scar tissue. And he's like, "Oh, that's weird." He goes, "Okay, cool." And then they leave. He's like, "Yeah, I'll pick you up tomorrow." And then, you know, he leaves, comes back later at night. When everyone's, he kind of hides in the stairwell, which I can't imagine how many stairs are there. She takes the secretary, Sharon takes the elevator down, and then he's sitting there going over his messages, and he saw that the doctor that was killed in the opening scene left him an urgent message. Tries calling him, nothing. He's trying to. He's like, "Oh man, I know who this is," and they. Duane's talking to the basket, talking about how he's going to have the other number in his Rolodex. We have to get that, and it's very late at night. He locks up, and he's just trying to figure out what's going on there. I don't think we get the flashback yet. No, we don't.
No, not yet.
And then, he kind of just he hears something scraping at the door from his office, and the door is like completely ripped off its hinge. And then he, is running around, figuring out, hearing weird noises, heavy breathing. And this is when we first find the picture. He's kind of just hanging off the side of the wall, and it is how do we want to call him? Humanoid blob.
Well, he's like a bag of organs with a head and arms.
Yes.
Head and arms. The head is like in the bag of organs. It's not like a separate head. It's like the face is on the bag of organs, and then he's got like two arms coming off of it. No legs.
Correct. But he's just, like able to stick to the wall.
Right. Yeah.
By smashing his skin and organs to the wall.
Like I don't know. I think he was supposed to be crawling with his hands. I don't know.
I don't know. But we see him, and like, okay, and then he gets just gutted and mauled and like torn in half, doesn't he?
Well, essentially, yeah. The thing just attaches itself to his face.
Yeah,
and then again, just like slashes his face all up.
Yeah, I thought he was ripped in two. Okay, but then they do get the Rolodex. Dr. Newman calls another doctor who is clearly on an escort date, trying to get her boy toy.
But the reverse of what you think it is. The doctor is a lady, and the bimbo is a dude.
He's very much a bimbo.
Yes.
She's like, I don't know.
Her name is Dr. Cutter.
Dr. Cutter.
So Dr. Needleman and Dr. Cutter.
Yes. It's crap. Something Falls. What was do you remember the name of the town? Something
Glens Falls.
Glens Falls. Oh, he's here. Remember that? No. She's like, I don't know who you're talking about. No, I told you never to call me again. So the next day, it's Wednesday, so Sharon's day off, and so we know his name is Belial, is his brother.
The organ bag.
Bag is Belial.
Well, yeah, we don't find out about the brother thing until I think he does say that they're brothers. Yes, but we don't get the flashback until later.
Correct.
He's gonna go out with this girl, so he lies to
Belial,
his brother, and says that he's gonna go stalk the Dr. Cutter to get information.
Scope it out, right? Like how they scoped out beforehand that they couldn't kill Dr. Neiman right then and there. They had to figure out when there's no one going to be around.
Right.
He brings him back a TV to watch, and a whole bunch of food, I would say. So then Duane goes on this date with Sharon. They go to the Statue of Liberty and immediately kiss. And I didn't really want to see New York. I just want to see you again, you idiot. I just wanted to go out with you too. I didn't want to see New York, right?
I almost fast forwarded through that part because it was so bad, so bad.
Yes. So telepathically, I don't know how many miles away, Belial knows that Duane's getting on or kissing, gets angry and starts throwing a temper tantrum, breaks the TV and starts just destroying the room, and like everyone in the hotel comes out, like 10 people. all trying to figure out what the hell is going on there. Get Mario, the manager.
I do have to say, his scream is so loud and
It's-
so annoying.
Yes.
It is like unbearable. I kept turning the volume down, and it kept getting louder.
Yeah.
Oh man, my dog left the room. That's how annoying and loud it was. Like, it would not stop. It like goes on for like minutes.
Yes, it did sound like the bag of organs was being murdered.
Oh my god, it was so loud.
Just murdered. So they open up, the Mario the manager comes and opens up the room. It's just trash, but there's nothing there. Right? They don't see Belial anywhere.
They even open up the basket, and there's nothing in the basket.
Yeah. So like, that's weird. They call the cops. It's not like someone's getting murdered in there. And they go, and then later the shady guy goes in and takes his money, or tries to steal his money. He picks the lock, which doesn't seem very difficult, and is killed because he's like, I'm looking at this basket too. And Belial is back in the basket, murders him, but in the guy's own apartment.
He jumps on his face, and so the guy runs into his own apartment, like, with him.
Yeah. Right. So telepathically, Duane senses that. He just runs away from Sharon. And they start arguing that, Duane's like, we're doing this all for you. This is all your idea. I want to do something for me. Saying I need time with myself, but anyway, he then takes the basket, goes down, I'm assuming next door, or like one of those basement bars. Like, have the steps down the sidewalk into the bar.
Well, yeah, assuming, because New York, if you've ever walked around New York, there's literally a bar like every 10 feet.
In ground, under the ground, essentially. I would say.
Well, it's just a dive bar.
Yeah. Gets drunk with his 2 cans of Miller Lite, or was it Pabst or something like that?
I don't know. It did not look appealing.
And he meets Casey, the lady of the night, and so drunk he tells her everything. That, once in the basket, my twin brother, ha ha ha.
And then we get the whole flashback of like him being born, him killing his mother as he was born.
Right.
His dad like not liking him and not wanting to deal with it, and eventually, but he had like a nice aunt, right? Like the aunt was like taking care of him.
Yeah.
And then I think the aunt like left for something, like was going to be out of town for a while, so the dad like called these doctors up on the sly.
Yeah.
To come over and basically do like a home surgery to cut the Siamese twin off of him. Because they're like, we can make one normal and the other one's just, we're just gonna kill it. Right. Yeah, we're just gonna kill it.
Yeah, it's that they're 12 years old at this point in time. And they said he spent 12 years trying to find someone to do it. And one doctor goes, they don't share anything. It's just flesh. Like, there's no organs being shared like conjoined twins may have. There's no bones being shared. They're not sharing a digestive tract or anything like that. So, which is amazing that you think it took 12 years to find someone willing to do that when it's just flesh.
Right.
Right. And then the easily most peelable skin I've ever seen. She has like 3 cuts, but there's blood everywhere.
Right.
Gets separated and they kind of just throw them into the trash.
And I hope you like this scene, because this scene makes an appearance in both of the other movies. This exact scene.
Yes, they don't reshoot it, which is good. So essentially, he gets him out of the trash. They said, hey, we can't have this happen. You're my brother. I love you. And he's been attached to him for 12 years. They kill their dad and they go live with their aunt, but then she dies. Not from them. Then essentially that they're just going around looking for the doctors that did this.
Right.
To them to get revenge. So it's 8 years later after they were, unseparated. They were separated.
Right. And you'll be shocked to find out that the guy that injected him with the drugs was Dr. Needleman. And the doctor that cut him was Dr. Cutter.
Yes.
So clever.
I know words. So essentially, she's like, okay, I don't believe you, but she's like, you're drunk. Um, and she brings him back into the hotel, and she goes, huh. And then we get like her take shirt off and getting ready for bed, taking off her underwear, and just goes to sleep in probably a weird way. I wouldn't say weird, but just seductively. Let's say.
I don't think she's being seductive. I think she's just going to bed.
Well, I mean, I think it's maybe seductively, but like, Belial goes and takes her underwear and just is obsessed with them.
Well, he tries touching her.
Yes. Yeah, he goes in there and starts touching her while she goes to sleep seemingly pretty fast.
Oh yeah, she was hammered.
That's fair. But yeah, she she scares her out, right? She wakes up and sees this thing.
Right.
And then she's screaming, goes out the window, they're screaming for help, and they're like, huh. And they couldn't find him, and he ends up being hidden in his toilet.
Yeah, well, yeah, Mario, the manager, comes up again. I mean, there's a lot of scenes of him coming up, trying to figure out what the hell is going on.
Which poor guy, he barely get through the door, the table open, out behind the desk.
Right. This guy's just trying to run a business.
Yep. And yeah, so they don't know where it is. They saw this maybe out the window, and they looked at Duane's room, not there. Let's see here. Then I believe they go to Dr. Cutter's office.
Mm-hmm.
And
she's not a doctor. She's a veterinarian.
Yes. Right. And then it's like they reveal themselves like, hey, I'm Duane from Glen Falls. You did this stuff. Here's my brother. And she starts getting attacked the same way. And then just a drawer full of sharp objects just sitting there, like most vets have, just that huge ass drawer of every cutting.
Well, okay, well, here's the thing. I always have this problem because this happens in a lot of movies, and it bothers me. If you have a bunch of knives sitting in a drawer, and you stick your face in that drawer, nothing is going to happen to you
because they're not pointed.
Because they're not pointed at you. Okay, like I mean, if somebody takes your face and is like grinding it into the ground, yeah, you might get like some slices off your face. I'm not saying that's going to be a pleasant experience, but you are not going to pull your head out and all these knives are going to be stuck into your face. Like they're not sitting straight up in the drawer. Like a lot of movies do that, and it just bothers me.
Yes, they're perfectly laid down. Yeah, there's no reason for that. And obviously, then she dies. Revenge has been sought.
Right, and at this point, we find out that Belial only has one move.
Yes.
He just attaches himself to your face and then just like keeps biting your face until you die, essentially.
Yes.
Because he's done it. Every person he's attacked, he does the same exact move.
Hey, if it works, it works, right?
I'm just saying, that move is a very good move, right? It has worked so far. I'm just saying he only has one move. And the rest of this trilogy, he only has one move. This is the only thing he ever does when he attacks. He attaches himself to their face. That's it.
Yes.
One move.
Yep. Anyway, then, that kill happens. Then Thursday, Sharon goes to the doctor's office. He's been gutted. And she goes and finds Duane. She's like, I'm scared. Hold me. Let's do it. I've known you for 12 hours.
Hey, okay, this is New York. She's a modern woman. Okay, she is allowed to, want to get it on whatever she wants to. It was her choice. She was not coerced.
Yeah, so they start.
You can be sex positive. We're sex positive here. It's okay.
Yes, they start, kissing. They start doing this stuff, and then Belial just jumps out of the basket. He's very upset, and then Duane does wraps her up in the sheet. So she can't breathe, and throws her out of the room. Right. Saying they can't be together. I'm doing this to protect you. And then she leaves.
And she wasn't naked at this time.
Correct.
Just so you know, he wrapped her up in the sheet while she was fully clothed.
Correct. Yeah. So it's like, okay, then they have this big argument. Um, and then Belial, or yeah, sorry, Duane goes to sleep in his fully clothed on top of the sheets, not under anything, which is weird. And then Belial's eyes start to glow, and then essentially we get a Duane running naked through New York, like fully naked. You see everything.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking dong flopping and everything. I
Yes.
mean, this is full on naked, and he has this weird like side hop gait. I don't know how to describe that, but he doesn't look like he's running like a normal person.
It's like a limp, but it's not a limp.
Right, yeah. It's like I said, I call it like a weird side hop gait. I mean, obviously that's not the thing you're focusing on at this time, because like I said, he's full dong flopping running down the street. But yeah, I just thought he had a funny gait.
But then it goes to Sharon's apartment where she's sleeping naked.
As you do.
Right. And, starts at her feet, and then it's his hand caressing her breast. Then it turns into being Belial, because essentially Belial projected the images of him running naked down the street. So he translated it to Duane. And then he starts to, unfortunately, rape Sharon to the point of death, I would say.
Well, yeah, he's strangling her as he's doing so. Or at least I think he strangled her before he did. Yeah.
And he, Duane wakes up, realizes what's going on there, goes to Sharon's apartment, gets Belial off her, but he finds her pumping her in a puddle of blood down there.
Yeah. I don't know what was happening. I don't know if that was his like bag of organs ruptured or something. I don't know.
Yes.
If he's got like a weird, like one of those barbed penises that like hurt him as it came. I don't know what happened there. Right. But it was definitely blood as he pulled him away. That was true.
Yeah. Yeah. Almost like he's getting reattaching himself somehow to her body.
Right. Yeah. It was disturbing. It was not pleasant.
Yeah. So they take him back to the apartment. They have an argument. Belial attacks Duane for being unhappy. Yeah. And he attacks multiple people in the apartment, and they end up falling through the window. He's strangling Duane while hanging on for his life, and then they end up falling and seemingly dead. Both dead.
Yeah, there's like the cinematic shot of them like laying on the street with blood all around,
and then people gather.
The camera like pans out, and then and then the end.
The end. Yep. No post credits. Nothing like that. That's the end of Belial and Duane, as far as we know it.
Correct.
In 1982. So yeah. My first thought, I would say, or my first thought, this is definitely not my first time watching this movie. I would say I probably saw it for the very first time on TNT's Monster Vision or Up All Night with Billy Bob. I saw it somewhere because they did like creature features at one point in time. So I saw like Head of the Class, Pumpkinhead, Toxic Avenger on the same thing, right? It was a Up All Night thing. It was the first time I remember seeing this, not obviously in its full glory in probably 1995 when those were going on. But I remember it being Basket Case and just a freaky looking cover of essentially Belial.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this was, like I said, same time I was watching Pumpkinhead and Head of the Class, which all these we'll get to, but creature features. I'm like, this seemed interesting enough that, it was in the back of my mind to go see it again. Like, I like creature features a lot. And I didn't think it was for what it was, and like I said, being younger at that time, I didn't think much of it. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy this movie to this day still. I don't watch it very often, but it's something that when I went back during my video rental days, I made sure to get everything Basket Case, trilogy and all that stuff. What about you? What were your first thoughts? I mean, do you remember your first time seeing this?
I mean, I honestly don't know if I've ever watched it all the way through before.
Okay.
But I have definitely seen most of it. Like, I knew the basic plot of the movie. I knew what like Belial looked like and everything. Like, I knew all that. So I knew about him being in the basket and all that stuff. I knew all that stuff. I can't remember a time where I like watched it all the way through. So I think it was just kind of like bits and pieces, like whenever it was on type of thing, background type stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, just watching it, it's, I mean, it is, again, $35,000 budget really, really shows.
Yeah.
I mean, the acting is bad. The editing is horrible. I mean, there's like, again, there's scenes where like one person is talking and it cuts to the other scene and it's like, different background noise.
Yep.
I mean, like everything's like, it's just like so jarring and off. I mean, the editing is so, so bad. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of bad things about it, but there's also like, it's just a for being what it is, for the amount of money that it was, there's a lot of fun stuff in there. You know what I mean? I mean, the idea of it is definitely original, right? I mean, that's
absolutely.
a bizarrely weird story. I mean, again, it's original, it's stupid and fun and campy, and again, it's not bad. It is bad. It is badly made, but it is not all the way a bad movie.
One other thought, I thought this too rewatching it. It was the first time I watched it, and on the rewatch too, is this dubbed?
Yeah,
I felt like, especially Duane felt dubbed. It felt like he was speaking a different language,
right? And I assumed it was dubbed as well until we get into 2 and 3 where he talks the same way.
Correct.
So it's not dubbed. He just talks like he is being dubbed. He's just got a very bizarre manner of speaking.
Yes, he does.
Right.
Yes, he does.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, his acting does not improve as the series goes on. But again, this first one is, like I said, it's got like that charm to it. I mean, obviously, if you don't like horror movies, you're not going to like it. It's it's just a goofy, campy slasher movie.
It's a good time of it.
Right. But again, it has a charm to it. Like I said, it's got that originality. It's got that, that independent spirit kind of thing. Right.
Yeah.
It feels real because, again, they filmed it in Times Square in that time period. So it like looks like the seedy back, Times Square that was at that time. The people that they hired, they look like just normal people off the street. So it really does give it a little bit of like authenticity, I guess.
Yeah,
which is, like I said, I like all this stuff. I think it's interesting, but again, it gives it that charm, that interestingness to it. Where it's a fun movie overall.
And you may be very surprised by this, but the guy Kevin who plays Duane, of 7 movies, 3 of them are these.
Yeah.
One is Brain Damage, which I think the writer also did.
Yeah, because I was going to say there's there's a lot of crossover between these movies and Brain Damage, so it has to be the same people.
Yes, it is. No, like I said, I still watch it. I still enjoy it to this day. But highlights, yes, it's an indie movie, but for $35,000, they made it work. Like I said, some practical effects didn't work, but they're still pretty decent practical effects, especially for that budget. Like, you don't have Tom Savini doing the practical effects, but they were still pretty good. Yes. And even the stop motion. Yeah, I'd say stop motion was kind of a dead thing by the 80s. A little bit, right?
Not at this point in the 80s. I mean, this is 82. There's still a lot of stuff happening. I would say like more like mid to late 80s is when it was like being killed off. Yeah. That's when like CGI was coming into.
Right.
They thought it was good at that time. Looking back on it now, you can tell it's bad. But to them, it was good at that time because, again, it was way cheaper than the stop motion. It took way less time.
Right. And just Belial, yes, he looked like a big puddle of one plastic thing or rubber thing, but it still worked. For him not speaking, other than his screeching, he had character.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I could like give you like one highlight. I think I went over the things that I really liked about it. I said I really like that authentic old school Times Square. I really like the act. I mean, the actors are not good. Don't get me wrong. They're not good actors. No one in this entire movie is good. I can't even call out one good person. They're not good. No. But they feel like they're authentic people. Like they really feel like these are people that you might actually find in this area of New York. And I really like that. Like I said, I think it gives it that authenticity, that fun, independent spirit is really where
which is amazing. It really is amazing for the budget that they're everyone felt like a unique character that you can understand exactly with them, with how little screen time they had.
Right. And I will say the fucking low point is again that scream.
That scream,
Dear
yes.
God, it is so loud. It is so annoying, and it goes on for way too long. And like I said, I kept turning it down. Yeah, the dog left the room. I mean, it was bad. I had to pause it. I had to go get like another drink and then come back to like regather myself to and it kept going for like another minute after I came back. Like it would not stop.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a very fair low point. Also we discussed it too. Just the quality of the editing was horrendous.
Yes, it was.
If the editing was better, this would have been a much better movie.
Well, I mean, yeah, if they had more money to throw at the movie, yeah, they probably could have made it better. But again, for the $35,000 it took to make this movie, it's about as good as it can get.
Yeah, yeah. So,
I mean, it's less money than it took to make the Blair Witch.
Yeah, and Evil Dead, and this has to be not as known as stuff like that, especially like Blair Witch or Evil Dead, but like it's still, they're still getting 4K restorations of this movie. Right. So there's still demand. It still has that cult classic status, of at least the first one.
Yeah, like I said, the first one deserves it. The first one, yes. Again, for what little it had, it did a whole lot with it, and it deserves that cult classic status. I will give it that.
Like I said, and it's one of the earliest stuff of creature effects, like creature features that we had in the slasher 80s. That I can recall.
That's fair.
That the creature is a main character of it too.
Well, yeah, because I mean, when the slasher first started, it was just people killing people, which was scary enough at that time. But as it becomes more and more common, you need to shine out a little bit.
And this definitely is in its own unique genre.
Well, yeah, like I said, it original. It definitely is. I will give it that. It's got original ideas in here, and it doesn't pull any punches. Like I said, the whole weird, rape scene is disturbing, and would that have made it in like other movies like later on? Probably not.
Definitely not.
Yeah, probably not. They would have cut it. They would have made it. They would have pulled that punch somehow, somewhere. Right.
Yeah. Yep. All right, so for this episode, we are doing number of mini Belials, which we'll discuss eventually in this stuff. So I'll go first.
We'll get there. Yeah, Basket Case 3 is literally called Basket Case 3, the progeny, so you can guess where it comes from.
Yeah, so mini Belials out of 10. I mean, I do rewatch this, and I do like your 7 number for rewatchability, and because of that, I'm going 7.5, just because it does some interesting things. It does have uniqueness to it, and it is a fun, campy, cheesy, but serious rewatch of a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
I will give it a 6.5 mini Belials out of 10. Simply because I think it is rewatchable, but I kind of need a drink to do so. And I make that rule to where if I need a drink to do the rewatch, then I have to take at least a half a point off. So
right, that's fair.
So we'll do 6.5. Like a drink, and I'll be at rewatchable level.
And in fairness, the one thing I always remember with this was the dong. It's just so weird.
It's odd for this time period. You don't see male nudity in this time period at all. So
yeah. Oh, all right. So you're going to bring us then into Basket Case 2.
Yes, Basket Case 2. Okay. So this movie is 1990. So this is 8 years later. You can immediately tell that the production values are way, way higher on this one. Like it actually has like normal widescreen ratio instead of a small screen ratio. I mean, there's like, you can tell they had like actual real cameras and,
Oh, look. On that point, I think the first one's filmed in 16 millimeters. And they upload it to 35.
Right. So, yeah. So it like depending on what version you watch, it could be like the square version. But anyway, So you immediately tell the production values goes up. Anyway, story wise, they survive the fall out of the window, which was out of a third floor window onto a hard concrete surface, and they survived somehow.
Belial broke their fall. I'm guessing they used a big squishy bag.
Right? Yeah, it's like makes sense. So anyway, so they get picked up and put in the hospital, but they survive. So Duane is in his leg is in traction. I mean, he's not in good shape, but he survived. Belial seems to be fine, other than he's knocked out. He doesn't seem to have any real injuries, but I mean, how would you really tell, right? He's like a bag of organs.
Right.
So anyway, so they're in the hospital, and they're now suspected for murders and stuff because there was a lot of cops that ended up going to their hotel a whole bunch of times. I'm assuming this is why they're being held for questioning and stuff. Anyway, so they're unconscious in this hotel room. And we see this journalist lady is trying to get in there. She's, all kinds of lies. Oh, they told me I could come in. They told me I could do that. They're like, yeah, whatever, lady, get out of here. So they kick her out. She makes an appearance later. That's the only reason I'm mentioning her now.
Yeah.
So essentially what happens is this lady who's called Granny Ruth. She is, we don't really get this till later, but I'll just say it now because it makes it easier. She is a lady that runs a home for what she calls unique individuals, which are freaks, essentially, right? The old school meaning of freaks, meaning sideshow freaks kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
So anyway, so she is okay, these people need my help because they're obviously being, singled out because they're, freakish people that though they couldn't have done anything wrong. I need to go and save them. So,
well, she also recognizes them, Duane, the name.
Right.
Yeah. The Bradley twins.
Right. Yeah. The Times Square Bradley twin murderers, whatever they call them.
Yeah.
So she gets her van, a windowless van. And she and her granddaughter go and essentially break them out of the hospital.
Yep.
So they're sneaking around and escaping the police, blah, blah, blah. They get in the van and they get out of there. So they get back to their, she's got this farmhouse in the middle of nowhere type thing. I don't even think they said where.
Upstate New York.
Is that where it is? Whatever.
Yeah.
It's in the middle of nowhere somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, they bring her to this big giant house and they say I've got a lot of people like you here. Let's, and they kind of give us a quick introduction. And it's whatever you think of when you think of unique individuals or sideshow freaks, these people are not that.
No.
They are you go to an effects person, right? You go to a studio effects studio and you're I need some weird looking people, that look like they came out of a bad dream. And they're okay. And they with no direction, just make all kinds of weird, crazy stuff. That is what these people are.
What if a guy has 11 noses?
Right. Yeah, literally. I mean, and it's I think we were talking about this a little earlier. It's you take cartoon versions of what you think weird, crazy creatures are.
Nightmare creatures. Yeah.
Right. And then you make them into real life things. That's what these people look like. So you got a guy with teeth that are 3 feet long.
The scale up in size. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They scale up and they're sticking out knives out of his face. You get this giant head with the big things that his head is so big he can't move.
He has the best,
but yeah, it's a beautiful singing voice, and then he's never ever mentioned again.
And the rest of the trilogy.
Yeah, so you get this dude that looks literally a big pile of walking shit. I don't know how else to describe it. He looks like a big pile of crap. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
You get what giraffe necked lady with the hammerhead eyes.
Yeah.
You get the guy that looks
Crescent moon.
Yeah, you get the weird half moon guy head. You get the guy with he looks like a demon with a metal plate for a head.
He looks like Chrome Dome, but if he was a demon.
Right. Jeez, I don't even know. There's more of there's I don't know, that big weird looking pinhead guy with the sloth eyes.
Yeah.
Franklin or whatever his name was. Anyway, there's all these bizarre looking freakish people.
They look like Cenobite rejects.
Right.
Ideas.
Yeah, they look okay. They look like Tim Burton Cenobites.
There you go. Yep.
Tim Burton Cenobite. That's what they look like. Anyway, they don't look really that scary. Yeah. They just look ridiculous.
If when in Beetlejuice, when they mutated their faces, that's what they look like.
Right. Yeah. Like, the lobby in the waiting room in Beetlejuice is what these people look like.
Yes. There you go.
So, and then, so we're introduced to all these characters. And then the only one that really matters at this point is introduced to there's another character called Eve, who is stated to look very
just
similar
like
to Belial, only it's a girl version. We only see her eyes, and she hides herself under a blanket at this point, but whatever, we have to mention.
Which is interesting is that they actually get a person in the face. So it's human eyes versus the puppet eyes of Belial.
Right, yeah. She has a human face and then one human-looking arm.
Yes.
And then all the rest of her is like
a lock of hair.
Right,
a lock of hair.
Correct. Of course, because she's the girl version, so he has to have some kind of hair.
Yep.
So like basically she says like, yeah, you guys can stay here. This is a safe place for you. To like relax and heal, whatever. Okay.
And she talks about that she knew their aunt.
Right. Yeah. She knew their aunt, which is why she knew of them, which is why when she saw their name, she had to come rescue them.
Yes.
And that's it. And then there's so it's her, Granny Ruth is like a normal looking older lady. And then she's got her granddaughter, which is a normal looking, whatever, 20 something girl. Right?
At this point, I don't even know how old they're supposed to be.
Whatever. Duane, I mean, she looks like a young, normal looking woman. That's it. Right.
Yeah.
So they're like the two that do all like the normal stuff. And then of course the freaky people have to like hide because nobody knows they're there. Anyway.
Which I find it weird is that they're in the attic.
Right.
We're halfway home.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, so essentially at this point we get a time jump. To where it jumps forward a year. And then we jump forward a year. Duane thankfully gets a haircut. It's still a bad haircut, but at least it's better than the fluffy curly thing that he had going on in the first movie.
He's clearly aged.
Yes. He's clearly aged, but he has a haircut. It's still, like I said, not a good haircut, but at least it's better than it was. Yeah. So everybody is still in this house. They kind of show us that Belial and Eve have kind of like a thing going, to where they're always like hanging out and talking to each other. Duane really feels out of place because he doesn't feel like one of these freaky people. He feels like a normal person. And so he just wants to kind of get away. So he's trying to like convince the granddaughter, the normal looking granddaughter, that they're in love and that they should just get away.
And she agrees that they're in love.
Yeah, she kind of sort of agrees. I mean, she doesn't want to leave, obviously, but it's not like she's not saying that like we're not in love or anything. Like she doesn't deny that. So I guess they got something going on. But
right, and Duane's point is Belial has a home now, and he needs to have his own life.
Right.
Duane, I think, is absolutely spot on in that assessment.
Yeah, I mean, he's fine. He just wants to leave, and he's just goofy and kind of selfish about how he wants to leave.
He's still very childlike. Let's put it that way. Right? He's been childlike the entire time. He's still very childlike.
Right.
In his ideas, I would say.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Obviously, he hasn't had a whole lot of room to grow or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So basically, we're introduced to that, to where he feels out of place and wants to leave, but they're still very much in the freak home.
Yep.
And then we kind of cut to the journalist lady that showed up in the beginning. She's at work. Her boss comes to her and is like, "Oh, we got to do another movie on the Times Square, freaky murder twins." And she's like, "We've done everything we can do. There's nothing else. There's nowhere else we can go." And he's like, "I remember a long time ago, there was this lady who used to harbor freaks or something. You should go talk to her, see what her, thing is, because, we need to bring it back for the year anniversary or something.
We need to milk as much money out of this as we possibly can."
Right.
And the newspaper is called Judge and Jury.
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like a National Enquirer type of thing.
It is. It absolutely is.
So she's like, okay. So she goes, like, her and this photographer partner of hers kind of go out and they're looking for more stuff. At first she sees an ad that some guy has the freaky brother Belial in his sideshow thing. So she calls him to make a special appointment. She goes out there and she goes and sees that it's not Belial. It's like he just took a bunch of bones and tied them together to make him kind of sort of look similar to that. But like again,
Granny Ruth goes there first. He gets woken up by the reporter. Granny Ruth gets there first.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Sees the mermaid, sees whatever this crap was, right?
Right. Yeah. So she is like, oh, so you have, Belial, and then she goes and looks at it. And she's like, that doesn't look like him at all. Here's what he really looks like. And she like brought the basket with her. Yeah. So opens it up. He does his one move, which is, he attaches himself to the face and kills this guy. So then, so the journalist lady shows up. She doesn't see the guy. She goes into like the event, like sideshow tent thing that he's got in his backyard.
Dollar store sideshow tent.
Right, yeah. It literally in his backyard. And so, she sees that the Belial exhibit is like all messed up, right? It's all like destroyed and torn apart and everything. And then she sees that guy dead in the mermaid tank.
Yep.
And she's like, oh man, something crazy is going on here. Whatever. Yeah, so she moves on to the next thing, which is like, the guy told her to call Granny Ruth to like interview her. So she calls her to interview, and she goes over to the house to do an interview. And she like, of course they hide all the freaks in the attic or whatever. And so she goes in to interview them at the same time that Duane and Belial go out to this garage to have a conversation. This is a conversation where Duane's going to tell him that he's going to leave.
Yep.
He's leaving with the granddaughter. I don't remember her name.
I don't know. We could have a name for it by the end of this movie.
Yeah. So he's going to have this talk with Belial that he's going to leave and whatever. While they're having this, conversation with this journalist and Granny Ruth. And Granny Ruth is, she immediately starts asking questions about the Bradley twins, and she just gets, upset and is like, okay, yeah, like, this conversation's over type of thing, like shuts it down hard, like immediately.
Yeah.
So basically like walking her out of the house. As she's walking her out of the house, Duane and Belial come back in. I mean, Belial's in his basket, so like obviously you can't see him, but she immediately recognizes Duane.
Yeah.
And so, Granny Ruth and Duane try to play it off as if they're not who they are. And she's like,
they call him Michael.
Yeah. Like, oh, okay, that's fine. Like, let's go. So she like walks out. She like runs out to the car where the photographer guy's waiting. And she's like, I just saw, Duane Bradley, the murder twin there. He's in that house. So like, okay, well, what are we going to do? And she's like, well, we need the story. We need the money. So we have to do like our own exclusive thing.
And if I find them, I get that $1 million.
Right. Yeah. If I find them, I get all the money. And so
there's
she's
$1 million bounty published, James Jones Jameson style. That spider mess. I'll give you $1 million.
Right.
I'm not gonna pay him.
Right. So essentially, so she. I'm trying to think. Okay, she tells the photographer guy about it. She's got to go back to town to talk to this detective guy, right?
Detective Phil or something.
Yeah, she's got to go talk to Detective Phil to try to get more information and background stuff out of this. She just tells the photographer guy to sneak in the window and try to get some pictures of him, right?
Yep.
And that's what he was supposed to do, but he ends up breaking into the house and like trying to look around and get the good pictures, right? So and they knew this was going on. They kind of sort of set him up. They like Duane was like faking a phone conversation, whatever. They kind of lured him into the house. I mean, obviously if he wasn't as sleazy, it wouldn't have mattered, but they kind of lure him into the house. He goes up into the attic and he sticks his head up there. And he sees all these freaky people and he's like, oh, and Belial does his one move, right? Attaches himself to his face and kills him, and then it's over.
Yep.
So then the journalist lady is now talking to Detective Phil. She has Detective Phil call them and basically say, hey, we know the Bradley twins are there. We want to make a deal. So they're like, okay, meet us in this bar and we'll talk about it. So they go to this bar, and Detective Phil sits down, and then they start talking, and you can immediately tell that the freaks are in the bar.
Oh, absolutely!
I mean, like you look behind him, and the dude is obviously a freak with like a fedora and a trench coat on.
Well, also you have like the moon face guy from like let's call him Futurama wearing a tiny human mask over
Right.
his
I mean,
giant
it's ridiculous. I mean, they're not being obvious about it yet, but I'm like, it's still, you can see it. It doesn't not even take like barely any observation skills to see this is happening.
And this is detective.
Right. Yeah. This is the detective. So the detective basically like thinks he's got the upper hand and is like, oh yeah. So, you hand over, Belial and Duane Bradley and let us have the bounty and then we'll let you go or what. I don't even know what the deal was, but it's something similar to that.
Right.
And they're like, how about we don't do that. We're freaky people and we'll scare you. And so they looks around the bar and like, yeah, everybody is wearing like ridiculous like fedoras and trench coats with like these goofy human masks. So there's no way that if you walked into the bar and saw these freaky people with masks on that you would be like, yeah, these are legit people. Like,
right.
These are normal people. There's no way. There's no way anybody would think that. But anyway, so it happens.
Well, and she goes, you're pretty much, you're at our control because there's more of us than there is you.
Right. Yeah. So of course, what do? The freaky people like push him into the back room where Belial is. Belial does his one move. He attaches himself to his face and attacks him and then kills him. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, they all go back to the house. I'm trying to think.
Well, Duane's still trying to leave. He gets with the granddaughter.
Right. Well, no. Before that, because the journalist lady gets away. So then they basically call her and tell her they're going to give her an exclusive interview, and they go to her house. And then they basically like, as she's in her house, like getting ready for bed, they like all like sneak into her house and they like all scare her with the, their freakiness, whatever it is. And then they attack her and then they turned her into like a freak too. They like twist her face all up.
Yes.
Whatever. It's bizarre, but of course Belial does this. Like no one else does anything. Belial is the only one who does anything. He does his one move and that's it. So everybody else just stands and watches, but they're all present, but they just stand and watch anyway. So then, they all won, right? So they did big win over this, person that was trying to, expose them. So they all go back to the house and they're all having a big party, eating hot dogs and, having a good old time, right? So then Duane and, God, I can't remember. What is her name?
I don't know.
Susan. Her name is Susan.
Yeah.
Susan is the granddaughter's name. Anyway, so Duane leaves the party, goes and talks to Susan, and he's like, we should, like leave again. Let's leave. And she's like, okay, well, let's just like, fool around first. So they start fooling around. And then we get this amazing piece of cinema where Belial and Eve decide to get it on. So now Eve is totally out of the blanket now, and we can see her in her. She looks kind of like Belial, only she's got like one leg that like sticks out upside down and backwards out of her body, and then she's got like hair.
Wiggles like a tail.
Right. So then we like this bizarre sex scene between Belial and Eve, which is just like two like animatronic like effects monsters slapping against each other. It's bizarre and it goes on for way too long.
Yes.
But like I felt bad for that lady because there's obviously a lady's head there.
Yes.
And Belial is obviously just an animatronic monster.
Yep.
Like, so she's the only physical person there being slapped up against with all these weird effects thing. I felt bad for her. Anyway, so that scene goes on for way too long. Anyway, and it keeps cutting back and forth to it between Duane making out with Susan and that. So Duane's making out with Susan and they basically are getting hot and heavy. And then she goes like, oh, I can't, I can't do this. I can't do this. And so Duane's like, why not? And she's like, well, I'm pregnant. And he's like,
for 6 years.
Yeah. He's like, what? And she's like, I've been pregnant for the last 6 years. And he's like, what? He's like, yeah, that's what makes me a freak. And she's like, huh? And so she like just pulls her like shirt up and she's got like these like cut wounds in her stomach.
Yeah.
And then like this bizarre, it looks like the sandworm from Beetlejuice.
Yes.
Comes up out of her body and it goes like, and then she like pushes it back in. And so then like, and then it comes out again. Yeah. So like at this point, Duane like has like a nervous breakdown So where he thinks like he was normal and he was in love with the only other normal person in this house, and it turns out she's not normal either, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, at this point he like basically has a full mental breakdown. After Belial and Eve are done and doing their post-coital snuggling, he goes up, grabs Belial, brings him into like the nursery, and then uses a knitting needle to sew Belial back on.
Yeah.
To his body.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. No, he pushed Susan out the window first.
Yes.
So he pushes Susan out the window and kills her. And of course, she falls on the hot dog table. So everybody knows what happened. And then that's when he goes and sews Belial back onto his body. And he's like, oh, it's fine. I'm all better now. You know, we're all back together now.
Well, because I think the nervous breakdown was part of his being not one of them. And he was making himself be one of them. That way he could fit in and try to fit in.
Well, yeah, I think basically he was like trying to like make his own identity, and his identity was that he was normal.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that like he's not.
Correct.
Yeah, but at least in his mind he finally understood that. Whatever it is. But yeah, so then that's literally the end of the movie is where he goes, "It's okay, we're all fine now," and it shows him with Belial reattached to his body.
Right.
And then end of movie.
Which really should say then to be continued? Question mark?
Doesn't. Yeah, it just cuts out to black. That's it.
Correct. So what were your first thoughts? I don't know if you've seen this movie.
I have not. No, I saw the first one before this. The second and third one I have not seen before.
Okay.
I can't say I was upset that I did not. I mean, watching it, it's just like, I don't know. Again, I mean, the creature effects, they're okay. I mean, they're okay as far as effects go, but like, what's the point?
Right.
I don't understand why they need to go into this weird, like, you know, kind of like whimsical direction with these freaky people. To whereas the first one was like, Belial was like a murderer, you know, like, and again, in this one, they're trying to make him almost like an anti-hero kind of character.
I think we nail it. It's very Tim Burton-ish.
Yeah. Like I said,
like,
yeah, it's like
comedy horror.
Right. Yeah, it's like, again, like he took the first one. The first one was just like a straight up campy slashy horror movie, like a creature horror movie, right?
Yes.
And then this one goes in like a bizarre, like, again, he tries to make Belial into like an anti-hero, and he tries to make the freaks like whimsical and like, I don't know. It's, again, I just don't think the vibe is correct for this movie.
It's not even close to the same vibe.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And this is the same writer and director. All three of these it's the same guy. It's not like different people picked it up and did something different. No, it's the same guy that did this. It just doesn't ring true. I mean, it doesn't feel right. You know, like the vibe of this movie right after watching the first one is like, what happened? What happened to you in those 8 years that this is where it ended up? You know, I don't quite know. I don't, you know, like there's only there's 3 people that die in this whole movie.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 4 if you count Susan.
Right. And it's still though, I mean, yeah, I guess Duane didn't mean to kill Susan, but it's still the twins. They're the ones that kill people. No,
Belial is the only one that kills people.
Duane did kill.
Well, yeah, he
accidentally, but
but he didn't do it on purpose. But yeah, Belial does his one move, and again, that's what upset me about the freaks, right? Like, oh, the freaks are there to scare everybody. Oh, they're going to war, kind of thing, right?
Well, they're just normal people.
Yeah, they just stand there, and then Belial does everything. Like that's it. It's so I don't know.
They put this creature on this pedestal, and he has to do all the dirty work for him. But they just want to be normal people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, it's just if I feel like the guy watched all these other creature features of the 80s and then watched Tim Burton stuff, and he goes, I can mix these two. So he did. Right. Yeah. It's and not well. And it just again the themes don't match. Because I literally watched Basket Case and then I went right into Basket Case 2. Like I watched them back to back, and they do not fit together. They're two completely different movies, two completely different vibes. Even though it's the same actor, same director, same everything, they feel like they're not connected at all. Yeah. Yeah, and you know, at least though now we can tell that he's not dubbed.
Yeah. Again, this one, like, okay, the quality is much, much better. You know, he's not dubbed. He just talks like that normally.
Yeah.
And it's not good.
Yeah. It's if what if Tim Burton watched The Thing and then made Pee-wee's Playhouse?
Right. Right.
The comedy, that's what it felt like.
Right.
So I mean, this was not my first time seeing this. Now I've watched Basket Case 1 a hell of a lot more. I barely remembered a lot from this movie. I remember all the different things in the attic. I remember the Eve. I remember the creature coming out of her stomach, her baby that's been in there for 6 years. Besides that, I did not remember Granny Root at all. But yeah, I mean, I when I watched a trilogy, I probably watched all three of them back to back to back. And I watched these in 3 different days, but yeah, just it seems like just so far of left field where this movie went.
Right.
It's astounding that he could have easily done another horror movie, but he went more fantasy, bizarre comedy.
Right. I mean, like, again, I mean, it feels like I'm just going to keep coming up with things how it feels. I mean, I think like the Tim Burton Cenobite is pretty dead on.
Yeah.
But I also say like Disney Nightbreed. You know what I mean? So where it's like, yeah, there's like freaky people, but they're like a kind of a harmless version of that. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. It's bizarre.
What seems like happened is he goes, I have money to do more creature effects.
Right.
And that's what he did.
Right. And that's literally the whole movie.
Yes.
Okay. I'll roll right into my highlights and low points then, because that's basically what it is. They're the same thing.
Yeah.
The effects are on one side fantastic. You look at these outfits and like, you know, effects that they did for these people, they're amazing. Like whoever did this actually spent a lot of time and a lot of care to make these look interesting. Like, and all of them have to move around and walk and move, and they do that pretty well. I mean, as far as, you know, those goofy outfits look and stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they did a great job. Whoever did it did a fantastic job. That's the highlight, right? Low point is why? You know, like, why did you have to do that? Belial is like a freakish Siamese twin that was cut off of a person. Like, he's not like really a freak, right? He's just like an accident.
An
I don't know. Yeah, right. So like, where does all this unique individual nonsense coming from? Like, why is this here? What is the purpose of this? They don't do anything. You know, they're just there for flavor. You know, even when they like try to scare people or say, oh, they're going to do something, they just stand there. And Belial does all the killing. They don't do anything. They don't ever actually interact with anybody. They just stand there.
You could almost say this would be better if it was implied that their mother was one of these people and therefore created Belial. Story-wise, I think that'd make more sense, especially where the trilogy ends up going.
Right.
Right? Because especially the last scene of number 3, which we'll get into, that would make more sense that their mother was also one of these creatures, therefore creating Belial attached to Duane.
Right.
Because it's implied that there's a lot more of things out there, and just Granny Ruth just happens to be one of the people that has a home for these people. Right. And Belial seems to be the outlier as far as anger issues, because he's going through anger management treatment with Granny Ruth, right?
Right.
In therapy. And Eve doesn't seem to be that way. No one else seems to be that way. So it's just Belial that has that malignant side of him,
right,
from everyone else. That he is the evil twin, essentially.
Again, it's just like, I don't know. I don't get it. If this was like a movie that was like standing alone and had a different name, you know, you know, and maybe just make Belial and Duane into like any other twin type situation, like not a continuation of the first movie, maybe it would do better. Maybe I would like it better. But I mean, being a continuation of the first movie into this, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't fit.
The movie's not about Duane anymore.
No.
He's just there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as the series goes on, he gets more and more sidelined. For Belial and the freaky people.
Right. Absolutely. No, and I completely agree with your highlights and low points. 100%. It's just it doesn't make sense on that aspect of it. Like I thought I had forgotten about this, and I thought that maybe Eve was Susan's sister. That would have made sense too. That Susan would claim that she's a freak and part of them because then she lifts up her shirt and she also has a scar on her side of her, showing that her and Duane would have been more alike than what Duane realized.
Right.
That would have made more sense too, I think.
There's a million different ways you could improve this thing. I mean, as it stands now, it's just not good. Obviously we'll get there with the score, but again, these effects are good. I'm not saying that they're bad. Somebody took a lot of time and effort and made some great stuff.
As we watch stuff like this and behind the scenes, like Grimm's like that, that's a lot of work to create it, to make it wearable, to have it movable, to be on screen looking good, right? There was so much the creator, the creature effects of this had to love what they were doing.
Right. Like
it shows.
Yeah. Like again, they did some great stuff. They made some great things. It just, again, the whole point is why? Like what is the point?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, high and low is the same thing.
Yeah, like I said, and okay, would you say there's better acting in this one? Not by Duane, obviously, but
not by Duane, but overall, yes. Like Granny Ruth, you can tell is like an actual actress. Yeah. Susan is a little off-putting. I think it's just her jawline. She has like this very, very strong jawline, and I don't know, it like makes me uncomfortable or something. But she's a decent actress. You know what I mean? Like the freaky people look like they have like good physical actors.
You have to.
Yeah. But
you have to.
Yeah, again, Duane is not good. He's just as good in this movie as he was in the first one. But yeah, everybody else that's new in this, yes, you can tell they had the budget to actually hire real actors.
Right. But the problem, I'd say a low point for me is with no words, and most of them didn't speak either of the other I don't like, I guess, freaks, right? Uh-huh. Is Belial was still more of a character, right? They were just weird prosthetics on people that they weren't character driven like Belial was in the first one. You understood Belial's character from the same lack of talking and motion, and they were just there to fill in the screen. If they had less of them that had more character building, it probably would have been better.
Yeah. I mean, they were there to fill a theme. And that was it. Yeah, they didn't really have any arcs or individual personalities even or anything like that. It was just, they were just there. Their personality was what they looked like,
Right. Oh, and one more thing to discuss what they kind of remind me of. You ready?
Uh-huh.
Do you remember Bad Taste, the aliens? And Bad Taste, Peter Jackson's Bad Taste?
No.
Okay. you should look it up and tell me that wouldn't remind you of one of the creatures that'd be in there.
I'll trust you, buddy.
Okay, so it reminded me of that too, or just weird creature effects. So, what is your go with you first? Your number of mini Belials out of 10 on this one?
I don't know. I was really upset with this movie because again, I watched them back to back. I watched them back to back, and it was so off-putting. I was so annoyed with this movie. But again, there's some interesting things in it. So 3.5 mini Belials out of 10.
Remember, we still have one more of these.
I know.
Oh, yeah, this really is a huge dip down. Like, huge dip down. That rewatching it, I'm probably never gonna do that again. unless there's a new one comes out in this series, which the guy who plays Duane's still alive. He's like 70 years old at this point in time. So I don't know if the writer is. 4. Harmony of Belial's, because we still have the third one to get to, and it doesn't get any better.
Yeah, it keeps going in the wrong direction.
Yes, it does. Yes, as I realized I forgot to put low points on that point here too. All right, so yeah, do you want me? We're a tag team. Well, it's the last one, correct?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I'll start. You start. I don't care.
You can continue.
Okay. So Basket Case 3: The Progeny.
1991, so 1 year later.
Yeah, literally, just like they probably started filming right afterwards. So it's the same house.
It may have been the same time. They may have just shot both of them.
Because yeah, it's the
movies.
same like outfits. I mean, everything's the same. What I think what happened is that the guy who was like the original guy who like designed this stuff, or at least put it on the people, I think he left. But I think they still had the original outfits because they don't seem to fit as well in this movie. Like they're obviously still the same like prosthetics.
Yep.
But they just seem like they don't fit as well. So I'm pretty sure like the guy who made them left and they just had some other guy come in and he wasn't quite as good, or at least didn't know the ins and outs as well as the other guy did. So like, yeah, they look the same, but they're kind of like a dollar store version of the 1s and 2. That's what I just feel like that way. Anyway. So what happens is Duane, after sewing Belial back onto his body, they removed Belial again, but they locked Duane in a essentially like a padded room. And he's been in this padded room for months. And so he basically kind of like, I guess, snaps out of whatever trance he was in. So where now he's like, he realizes that he's like back in the real world again. He doesn't remember what happened the last months, right?
Yeah.
So Granny Ruth comes in and talking to him like, okay, we need to go on a field trip and you're going to come with us. You know, I'm glad that you're like snapped out of your thing or whatever, but we don't trust you enough to take you out of this straitjacket. So we're all going to pile up in this school bus and we have to go to Georgia because there's a doctor there that can help Eve, because of course Eve is now pregnant with Belial's baby.
Yeah.
And Eve is not doing well because obviously she's just a sack of organs, just like Belial is. So they don't really know what to do, right? Because they don't know like where her.
They don't know where it's gonna come out of. Like, right, where's this coming from?
Right. They don't know where they don't know what's going on. So they got to bring her to this doctor who, like, I guess specializes in like weird cases. It seems like this doctor has worked on a lot of these other unique individuals earlier, right?
Yeah.
Or at least we'll find out later. Anyway, so they basically all pile them into this school bus where they like the school bus windows are all like lined over with blankets and shit. So like nobody can see inside.
Literally blankets. Yeah.
Right. So they all pile into this school bus and they're all basically going on a road trip to Georgia to this doctor. As we get kind of a couple of scenes from the doctor as they're making their way out there to where he has a son, Little Hal. Like his name is Hal, and then he's got a son named Little Hal, who apparently was born with a whole bunch of arms.
Right. We see we see a painted baby picture.
Right.
Where he's just
got like at least 7 arms in that picture, in that painting. Sorry.
Let's call him like the literal sense of human centipede.
Right. More or less, yes. That's what it looks like. Yeah, baby in like a baby outfit with like multiple arms, but the head looks normal. Anyway, so that like the sheriff like shows that he's like friends with Hal, and he waves to Little Hal, but I don't think he's ever actually seen him in person.
He's seen him. He said, I haven't seen him since he was a baby. So
he saw him as a baby, but yeah, he knows he's weird with a bunch of arms, but I don't think he knows the extent that he matured into.
Yes, and Little Hal is essentially Tim Burton's Pee Wee Herman with his contraptions.
Right, yeah, like an inventor that builds all kinds of inventors that like talk and are all cutesy and shit.
Right.
So it like makes the sheriff coffee with his little machine and stuff.
Which the cow gets a finger in it and it pukes up the milk in the coffee. Yeah, that was I
don't know what was happening, but
yeah, that was interesting.
Then they're driving across country. They show like actual like highway shots of this bus driving down the highway.
Which most of the time it's missing its cargo in the back.
Oh, obviously, yeah. So they get to like this small town, and for some reason, Granny Ruth decides to let's pull off and go to this drugstore. And like Franklin, the guy with the huge head that's got the sloth eyes, right?
Yeah.
He's driving. And he's obviously like super nervous about driving, so he like parks the bus in like one of those normal like angle parking on the side of the road. He parks the bus in that, so he's like half on the sidewalk, and the other half of the bus is still like in the street. And Granny Ruth is like, yeah, that's fine. And then she goes into this drugstore, and she heads right for the condoms, and she starts filling up her basket with all of these condoms. I don't know what she's gonna use them for.
Well, she needs extra large ones too.
I don't know, but like, what is happening? Like, I don't understand what was going on as she needs all the condoms. I think it was just like a shock funny thing that she was doing, but I don't think they thought about why.
I would say that her trip to the condom spin rack was very much of a person buying condoms as a high schooler, that they like picking out these other random things along the way. Like, yeah, I need cotton swabs and some Trident gum.
Right.
And let me 10 packs of condoms.
Right. Yeah, but I don't know what the point of this drugstore stop was, other than to like be ridiculous. I don't know.
Unless she just realized that they can procreate and that maybe they need condoms.
Right. So like, yeah, you're talking like, okay, we're talking camp levels here, right? So we're talking Basket Case 1 has a camp level of, I would say like 3, 4, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty campy, but it's standard campy.
Yep.
The second one goes up to probably about a 6 or a 7, right? It turns up that camp, but it's more like this like goofy, whimsical version of it, as we previously discussed. Now the 3, it turns it up to like 11, man.
Yep, it goes all the way.
Is like just trying to be as cheesy and goofy and like off the wall, wacky as possible. It is like ridiculous, and it hurts. It hurts. It's so bad it hurts. It just won't stop with the goofiness. Anyway, so yeah, like this is one of the newest things of like her buying a bunch of condoms. Do you have a bunch of extra large condoms? Like, haha, really funny. Camp at 11.
Yep.
So the sheriff comes in, of the drugstore, and is like, whose bus is out there? Because of course he's like, small town Georgia sheriff, so he's got like, Andy Griffith's Southern idiot accent.
His name is Andrew Griffith.
Right? Yeah, of course. They're like, whose bus is out there? And she's like, oh, that's my bus. I'm sorry. My nephew, he's
the car broke down.
Yeah,
and just had the bus laying around.
Right. Yeah, whatever. This goofy, ridiculous story. And the sheriff's like, oh, okay, just get out of the street. And so she goes like back in the bus, and they leave.
Well, before that, while she's in there, Duane is still in his straitjacket.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And he's trying to escape out the window.
Right. And then the sheriff's daughter, Opal.
Yeah.
This is like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm trying to escape. And then, they're like talking, like she's like completely oblivious as to like what's going on. And she just like trying to be all like, down home, sheriff's daughter, like helpful and nice.
Yeah.
Then the sheriff comes out there like, oh, I see you met my daughter. And she's like, oh, yeah, that's my nephew.
Yep.
And then, they're like, oh, yeah, nothing's going on here. See you later, Sheriff. They all jump in the bus and they leave.
But then she's talking to her dad. He seemed really nice. He was really cute, too. All right. Like, what is with Duane and this raw animal magnetism that he has?
I don't know,
with
man.
everyone he meets.
Yeah, maybe it's that... Maybe it's his telepathic connection to Belial is just giving him that animal, instinct.
Maybe, because like every woman that he sees, he instantly falls in love with. They are infatuated with him.
Yeah. Maybe that's his like freaky powers. He's got like pheromones that can I don't know what happened. So anyway, so they go to Hal's house, right?
Yep.
So they go to Hal's house, and like almost immediately Eve starts to go into labor, and she starts spewing like this her water breaks, and there's like literally like it looks like a water main broke.
And the bus.
There's like water flowing everywhere, and then there's like weird green goo squirting everywhere.
Yep.
So they're like they bring her into like this hospital bed. They're all the unique individuals are all like trying to help and going around, and like little Hal is like holding a camera, and
he's supposed to be
God.
Big Hal said that little Hal's gonna be doing delivery because he's more practiced. He's just gonna be an assistant for him, right?
Right.
But he's there holding a camera and just.
I mean, they literally, okay, imagine if you took somebody in a movie, setting and just gave him a camera and be like, okay, ad lib some really bad pun jokes, go.
Yep.
And they just like held the camera on him for like 30 minutes, and he just kept rattling off all these like dumb, stupid like jokes, and like I don't even know what it is, but it holds on him for way too long, and it just keeps
number 7. They all came from heaven,
right? It's like they just keep going back and forth. I'm like, oh my God, just shut this guy up, just stop. It was like this was like the yelling in the first movie was like this guy. I was like, just shut this guy up.
What I don't get was because he was supposed to be doing this, and they brought Belial in there, and Belial sees Big Hal as a doctor and attacks him.
Right, because Belial hates doctors.
Right, but then this other guy, Lil Hal, was supposed to be the doctor, and he was just sitting there being like hamming it up.
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing makes sense. But anyway,
if 12 kids are born, they're like they're just like a string of lights all attacked together.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
that's the exact line from the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even want to repeat all these horrible, stupid jokes this guy says, but I feel like the camera's on him for like 5 full minutes, and he just won't stop. It's like, oh my God,
Sean's probably behind the camera. Just keep going. Just keep going.
Just do it. Just do it. Just go.
We'll cut stuff out, and they didn't cut anything.
Yeah, they didn't cut nothing. Just left it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so while all that is happening, Duane manages to escape.
Yeah, they take the straitjacket off. It's like, you'll be good. And I was like, I'll be good.
Yeah, I'll be good. And he immediately jumps out the window.
Yeah.
And then he jumps out the window, and then he goes to the police station. I think because he was looking for Opal.
Yes,
right? And he's like, "Well, you were the sheriff's daughter, so I figured you'd be at the police station."
She's like, he's like whispering, like, Hey, from behind a tree.
Right.
Who's that? I don't remember your name. Duane, is that you?
Yeah, I don't remember your name, but I'm in love with you. Like, yeah,
right.
Just crazy guy. Anyway, yeah, so he basically like accosts her and makes her feel extremely uncomfortable to the point where they go into the police station. They basically he gets ID'd as Duane Bradley.
Yep.
So then they lock him up in this cage, right? And so then they're like, oh well, I know they were going to Hal's house, so we need to send out people to Hal's house to see if the other brother is there.
Yes.
So the other cops leave and go there. And then as that's happening, she decides she takes off her down home flannel dress that she was wearing, and she's wearing like a dominatrix outfit,
full on dominatrix,
right,
where she has a bullwhip and the levers to release the jail cell.
Oh my God, it's ridiculous. Anyway, so these cops go to the house, and they're looking in the windows. And at this point, all the babies are born. There was like 12 babies were born. And they're having a big ass party to celebrate.
Yep.
And so the cops, see all these, unique individuals through the window. So they're all like, oh my God, craziness is happening. Belial's got to be in there.
And they realize that there's still their reward in place from the previous movie, because it's essentially only a couple months later, right?
Right. Yeah.
So they're like, oh, we're going to get ourselves $1 million from the judge and jury newspaper.
Right. Yeah. So they sneak in a window. They go to the door. They open the door. The party's happening outside the door. They're trying to figure out how they're going to get in there when they realize that something is underneath the covers in the bed. And they basically the covers pull back, and Eve is there, but they assume it's Belial.
Yep.
So they shoot and kill Eve.
Yeah.
Thinking that they killed Belial, but then they see the basket full of 12 baby Belials, mini Belials, right? So they decide that the best course of action is to take the babies as bait, I guess,
or as
leverage.
Leverage, to get Belial.
Right. But the thing is, I don't get it because they thought that they killed Belial in the bed.
I don't know. Maybe they're just going to take that for the reward instead.
Right. I don't know.
They're thinking, if there's a $1 million reward for Belial, we got 12 of Belial here.
I don't know. I don't know what the whole logic of this situation didn't make any sense.
Country bumpkin deputies. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, what happens is they steal the 12 babies and they bring them back to the police station. And at this point, the sheriff, comes back, basically calls in the guys that are off bowling or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he decides he's going to go to the house, but then everybody else has got to hold down the fort.
Well, this is after realizing his daughter's trying to seduce another prisoner.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He catches her in the act and is not surprised at all.
What I tell you about this, Opal?
Right. Yeah. So obviously,
gotta stop seducing the prisoners.
Right. So then she puts her flannel dress back on and then takes one of the baby Belials that she now thinks is super cute and is going to keep it as a pet.
Which angers Duane.
Well, yeah, when she shows Duane that, Duane gets pissed because then he's like, "Oh, I guess my brother had his babies. Like, that's my brother's baby. You can't do that."
Yeah. Yep.
So they're all trying to hold down the fort in this place, and of course, all the I think they just bring Belial there, right?
Yeah, because the sheriff comes back, sees Eve dead, breaks in and sees that they're all mourning that Eve's dead, and they'll have like a burial procession going for her. But yeah, I think Belial goes after the baby.
Does Belial goes by himself?
Yeah.
Okay, I knew Belial ended up at the police station.
I think the thing was that after the sewing incident, Belial stopped talking to Duane telepathically, and then he realized that there is something going on there, so he taps back into it, able to kind of see through his eyes. He realizes that his brother's there and one of his babies are there after Eve got killed.
Right. So essentially, Belial gets into the police station, and basically just kills everyone.
Yep.
He kills I think there's 4 cops.
Yeah.
He kills them all in terrible, goofy ways. The one girl, Opal, falls down on the baby Belial and squishes him. And literally they show him squished with 2 ass cheek prints on his squished body. It's so stupid.
Yes.
So now he just has 11 babies.
Yep. Only 11.
Yeah. So essentially, Belial and Duane now escape.
Not after the sheriff was able to shoot a shot off at Belial.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. He shot the basket and hit the end of the basket.
So he was oozing out blood.
Right. Yeah. So then, as Duane is running away, he takes Belial out of the basket and sees that he's bleeding, but it looks like it just hit his arm.
Yeah.
Or Belial's arm.
Correct. Yeah. And so he realizes, we have to do this. So I know we've had our issues, Belial, but I gotta make this up to you. What if you get crippled from this? You know what I mean. Once again, legit line from the movie.
Right.
So then he talks to little Hal, who then has this weird montage of him constructing something. And then he gets Duane gets the blueprints from little Hal and just randomly points at stuff on the blueprints. Here's the motorized legs we're going to have for you here. And here's the 12 levers for the pistons. And just explain to him what's going on here. And his arms all healed up. He's like, just so you know, the 2 of the cops that actually killed Eve are still alive. So now you have that third act momentous reunion where their arguments are reconciled, right? They realize they have to go get his babies and they'll work together. And And essentially, yeah. So then I think we have the it's like the next morning, and then we get to one of the cops' house that had stolen babies, and a claw comes out and just like kills him. So essentially, a big exoskeleton was built for Belial. He's able to control with moving legs, all like you see the legs walking, and it's poorly done. That like they couldn't even make it look like it's walking normally.
I think my favorite part is that he has a lever that he can push that brings like a steel shield in front of him
after the gun's fired.
Yeah, so when they fire a gun, he hits the lever, which brings the shield up, which deflects the bullet. I mean, it is literally like seconds later. It's like bang, ding, like that. It takes that long. It's like, oh my god.
Yes, and then he uses like a circular saw, cuts open the door very poorly, and the other cop's house, kills him horrifically while Duane goes into get some milk and eats some Kellogg's cornflakes without any sugar, clearly telling that Duane is messed up in the head.
Oh, I almost forgot. I do have to bring it up just because it's so obvious. I think Jolt Cola must have donated money to 2 and 3 because Jolt Cola is the only thing that anyone drinks in both of these movies. They're almost in like every scene. There's Jolt Cola cans all over the place. In 2 and 3, they are everywhere.
Right, and then we get the product placement for Kellogg's cornflakes front and center.
Yeah, Kellogg's cornflakes.
While the exoskeleton mech is going to town in the other town in the background. So they're talking about this. Like they have the funeral for Eve, and they all go to the station. And the sheriff has all the babies. Like, all right, what we're gonna do is I'll give you the babies if you give me Belial for that $1 million reward. Right. Like, okay, cool. Go to this abandoned factory on this edge of town, and no one else will be there. Just Belial and you. Right.
Totally legit.
No one else is there. And he shows up, and this is where he starts shooting at him. That's where he has that shield blocker. He gets the upper hand. He's able to trip up the mech, and he's about to hit him down, and then he falls onto the babies and gets essentially eaten by them. Right. He falls in and just get eaten, and Duane's like, that's a lot of little Belials. And then since no one else is able to go there, they all go to a makeshift Burger King / McDonald's on their bus as a fast food restaurant. They go in there, scaring away, start eating all the food, and then she places an order. And the cashier is played by the lady of the night from the first movie.
Casey,
who does make an appearance in the second one as a reporter interviews her over what happened. And she looks the same, but I don't know if she's supposed to still be Casey.
I don't know.
9 years later,
it might be.
It's never. Clearly, you know it's her.
Right.
I'm assuming. I'm going to go ahead and assume that it is Casey. That she cleaned up her later tonight lifestyle after what happened, and then went to go work at this fake Burger King / McDonald's.
That's very possible.
So then we get freaking the end of this movie. Right, so they get the 11 babies back. Belial and Duane have made up. They're all cool now. And then the fake, what was the talk show host? Is it Gerardo?
Yeah, I think it was Gerardo.
Geraldo.
Or Fernando or something. Well, Geraldo is the real guy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're making fun of Geraldo.
Yes, they're making fun of Geraldo, right.
Yeah. And, freaks and the women who love them.
Right.
And then they crash the backstage. All the, different people come out and they saying there's more of us. We're not going to hide in the shadows anymore. And this is Granny Ruth talking. And she ends with have a nice day.
Right.
End of movie. End of trilogy. And see that part, freaks and the women who love him is what made me think that maybe their dad was in love with one of these different people, right?
I mean, it's possible. He seemed to like really dislike freaky people, though. So
that's true. And the people that were on the stage ran away from the people backstage too.
Yeah,
the two guys did.
Yeah, like the one weird. Guy had like a donkey head. I don't even know what the hell was going on there.
He had jackass noises coming from. The other one had like a foot in his head, I believe, something like that, right?
Right.
So, end of the Basket Case Trilogy. What are your first thoughts?
Man, I don't even know what to say with this movie. This movie is, like I said, it turns the camp way, way, way up. It's just more like just goofy, wacky. I mean, this is the kind of campy stuff that I just despise. It's just, it's not good. It's not even done through like an interesting way. It's just there to be there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. There's so many times where it just takes turns that just don't make any sense. I mean, it starts in 2, where it just takes these turns and turns and turns. And then the third one is like, oh, all these unique individuals, we're going to war. And then they don't do anything.
Right.
They do nothing.
Belial's the only one that's ever killed.
Yeah, Belial, they just throw Belial at people, which is what they always do. Belial kills everybody. They assault the police station.
Yeah.
And like all these, unique individuals are dressed in like, combat gear and stuff. And then Belial's the only one who does anything. It just doesn't make any, like, why are they there? What is the point? They don't do anything other than like you talking about them. They literally don't do anything. There's no point to having them in this movie.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, this is. I'm going to go with unnecessary movie to be
yes. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
They could have ended it with 2 and make it go back full circle with him being sewn back on. I would have accepted that.
I'm okay with just one. I'm okay with just one.
That's
we don't need 2 at all.
I definitely did not remember much of this one other than the ending.
Well, yeah.
Just because it was so stupid. And for anyone listening, we joke about cheesiness, my love of campiness and stuff like that, especially on our new website that we have up there. That I'm a purveyor of cheese, right? That I like to watch really bad movies. This is one I can't watch. Like, I'm pretty sure I know I own this on DVD. It made it to DVD. I don't think this is going to get the 4K restoration that Basket Case did.
Yeah, I highly doubt it.
Like, this is like below, like, the Killer Tornadoes Attack France level of campiness. Like, it's that bad. I can't watch it. I had a hard time watching this because I was falling asleep because I was so disinterested in this movie. Watching this in the middle of the day. I don't sleep in the middle of the day. Like, this is that bad for me.
Yeah, it's a horrible, horrible movie.
And I'm sorry. But I'm sorry.
As long as they don't come up with another one of these, I never have to watch it again. So,
well, I want to talk briefly. I want to talk briefly on that end of this.
No, more. There's no more of these being made. If they say they're filming it, I'm going to go and stop it.
I don't think there's highlights.
I mean, that's very fair. I will say I liked Opal's outfit. That's a highlight for me.
The dominatrix outfit? Yes, that was fantastic.
I don't like her in the outfit. I just like the outfit itself. I don't want to wear it. I just think it would be a cool outfit for someone else to wear that's not her.
Yes.
But that outfit, it was a cool outfit. That's it. That's all I got.
It is very much a trope of, I think it's those 2 things, is you have the young farmer's daughter that's like that, or you have the sheriff's daughter, which we got in freaking Halloween 4.
Right.
The sheriff's daughter was like that. But dominatrix, like, what's funny is they show the levers of them closing stuff, and the bullwhip was not there. But then she goes there, and the bullwhip is there.
Right.
It was so out there, so unnecessary. And I think you're right. They go, number 2 is like, all right, well, maybe they got a loan for the money, and they still realize, like, oh, we still have like $30,000. Let's make another one while we're here.
Right.
Might as well, right?
Right. Yeah, but yeah, again, 3 completely unnecessary. I really, really hope they don't make another one.
Low points
Please.
is Duane is not part of the story at all.
Really,
like he's reconstituted and accepted that. Yeah, okay, you don't have to be normal. You don't, and we're not saying normal is the way to be, but that revolutionary thing that was the idea behind it. Obviously, this was bad enough to kill the franchise.
Yes,
right. It's dead. And
we can
for
only
good
hope
reason. For good reason.
dead.
For good reason. Now, I could see them doing that, but low points, yeah, definitely the entire movie. They still didn't really talk. They had more people there, more unique individuals that weren't there before. So they had a little bit more money to help make Little Hal the, I don't know, black or red star pinata face guy. I don't know what else to call him. Right?
Right.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
That's always front and center of the dancing of the party. And the reporter is gone. They introduced different characters in number 2 that never made a reappearance in 3.
Right.
Even though it's the same time period. They never explain it. And yeah, low point is that shield, that shotgun, pull the trigger. Bink. Okay.
It's ridiculous. Like, they literally show him pull the trigger, show the bang, and then they put the camera over to him hitting the lever, and then the thing is that was like, come on, dude.
Also, Belial, like, he's killed how many people just fine? And all of a sudden he needs a mech armor?
Right. I mean,
like, what here's the best way to describe the mech armor, the idea behind it. Krang from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think that's the idea of Belial being Krang in the middle of the suit that Krang has, right? That's what I got for that.
That's fair.
What about your absolute low points? Any most defining low point?
Oh, jeez. I don't even know if I can. I mean, again, I think I'm going to say the low point of this one is, again, they take the stuff that was made well in the second one, again, pointlessly made, but made well, and then this one they use the same outfits, but again, they use them. It felt like they were wearing them wrong or something. So like they take these like very well built, prosthetics, to show these unique individuals, and then it feels like they cheese them out or they're wearing them wrong. So it's like they're not even that as cool anymore. Like it's like
probably what happened.
Bad.
It's probably what happened is people that wore them number 2, like, we're never doing this again. So they got different people that didn't fit into the custom made outfit.
That would make sense to me. It's something like that.
Yeah. All right. So number of mini Belials out of 10 for you.
Oh, for me, I have to go first. I'm going to say 1.5. 1.5 mini baby Belials out of 10.
Man, still not our lowest rating one yet, huh?
No, it's not as bad as Jack Frost.
Jeepers Creepers Reborn was our lowest rated one.
Okay, well, it's not as bad as Jeepers Creepers Reborn.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to watch this again. I'm going with you down to a 1.5. Yeah, so the only thing, I think we discussed this briefly when this movie I'm about to bring up came out, is what it felt like to me. Malignant felt like a modernized original Basket Case to me. Definitely to a degree. I can give it that. I kind of like it. I mean, obviously it wasn't like a separate being there, but I mean the spirit, the energy is the same. I mean, it was separate enough that they thought they cut out his body, but the brain was still left.
Right.
And then, we're going to obviously go spoil Malignant, but yeah, it was a conjoined twin as well for her in Malignant. And what I'm going with this is that feels like a point they could have remade and done Basket Case into as well. If they were to ever reimagine, remake, reboot this, is that path that Malignant went was the path it could go. And still make sense.
Yeah. I mean, again, I could see this series being rebooted. You know what I mean? Like, I could see that. But, I mean, again, I'm pretty sure this guy still holds the rights to it. So I don't think that's going to happen.
Correct. But I'm not saying this is a series that the original people need to come back for it to be good again. I'm saying the exact opposite. Someone else.
Right. Someone else, please take it.
Not Tim Burton.
No. Well, he's busy with Wednesday, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, I just thought Malignant was a good updated version of the original Basket Case. What my point is. Yeah, it just reminded me of that when I watched it.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. I'll give you that.
All right. Well, anything else you want to add to this infamous trilogy?
No. I mean, other than it's funny seeing Jolt Cola. I mean, I've never seen Jolt Cola like this prominently placed in a movie before.
I don't know what kind of money they had to pay. Like who they had to get Jolt Cola and Kellogg's product placement.
Well, Kellogg, Jolt Cola probably wouldn't take much because they were probably going anywhere they could at that time.
That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we really mentioned it when we were talking about it, but yeah, they literally reused footage from the first movie in both the second and the third movie. Yeah, I mean, but it's like significant. It's not just like quick things. It's like the full scene of them like removing the of Belial from the side of Duane. Like they showed the whole thing for like minutes.
Oh yes, absolutely. Number 2 had a lot of flashbacks too. I'd say like 20% was flashbacks.
Yeah, it did do a lot of flashbacks.
Not as bad as what we'll get into next Christmas, Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 levels of flashbacks, but more like Evil Dead 2 level of flashbacks, but not like actual flashbacks, which obviously reshot everything.
Right.
They just go, here's this great looking stuff, and then his memory is really bad and really distorted.
Right.
From these flashbacks. All right, then. Why don't you go ahead and bring us
out? Sure. Stay tuned for next week. We're doing M. Night Shyamalan. As we dive into his movies to prepare for Knock at the Cabin, which is coming out February 3rd. February 3rd.
Yep.
Will the twist be there is no twist at all? Will he continue his downward trend that he's been on? Let's find out together.
All right. So this has been Graveyard saying, "Have you checked on the children?"
This is Salem saying, "Long live the new flesh."
Good night.